Welcome to the On the Edge podcast.
So
Your host.
tell me why, because I have some opinions on this. No big surprise. Tell me why you feel the counterintuitive nature of minimum wage. Like, what doesn't work about it, or why do you not believe in it fundamentally?
Yeah, so I think, I grew up here in California listening to Loveline and Adam Carolla, and he actually shaped my thinking on this a little bit, and especially when he made his book, Not Taco Bell Material, that was about how he interviewed with Taco Bell, and they were like, well, we don't think you're Taco Bell material, and so they didn't hire him. And he doesn't even blame them, because he said when he finally did go get a fast food job, I don't remember who it was with, but that he didn't know. He had to be taught that instead of, pushing a mop, you drag a mop. It's not like that you treat a mop differently than you do a broom. And didn't understand showing up on time. Didn't understand. There's all of these basic skills that people need to learn. And I think it's better that they're able to learn those with employers who can afford to hire them. So what you do when you say, we're going to make the minimum wage $15 an hour, is you all of a sudden say to employers, only hire people whose labor is worth $15 an hour. Otherwise, don't hire. And that prevents people from being able to learn skills that move them up the ladder. And so, and if you want to take that analogy of a ladder, what the minimum wage does is it knocks out the lowest rungs of the ladder. So all of a sudden, instead of somebody being able to step onto that bottom rung at $8 an hour and then learn and then step to the next step at $9 an hour, $10 an hour, and keep going up, all of a sudden you are saying, you know what? Only people who can produce value that's worth $15 an hour, anybody under that, we can't hire in the first place. They're not going to learn. They don't, we can't afford to invest in them while they learn. So they just don't get a job. And, going back to progressives, this is something progressives in the 1930s understood very, very clearly. And the earliest arguments for the minimum wage were very open about their purpose. These were people who were very into eugenics.
Very racist policy.
Very racist. They just thought, and I mean, racist is one part of it, but also they thought too, there's white people who had bad genes, but that what we wanted to do was we wanted to select for better genes. And they were very honest that the minimum wage was a policy that would freeze people out of the market so that they would not be able to afford a family. They wouldn't be able to afford to reproduce. So what they're saying is anybody we're going to create this threshold. Anybody who can't immediately create value greater than this threshold doesn't deserve to be hired, and they shouldn't be hired. And so they shouldn't be able to select a mate. Like, nobody's going to want to marry them. Nobody's going to want to have kids with them. If they have kids, they won't survive anyway. And that way, what we can do is we can, just kind of instead of, a lot of the progressives were for forced sterilization, but minimum wage was a softer version of that. It was saying, we don't even need to sterilize everybody. We'll just put in this minimum wage, and then all the undesirables, they won't be able to afford to have families. So, because they won't get hired. And what this will do is this will ensure that, white people with good genes are the people who get the jobs, and that they can't be undercut by some lesser black person who is saying, you know what? I don't need $15 an hour. I'll work for $8 an hour. I'll work my way up from there. I'll prove my value to you. And you'll want to keep me on and increase that wage. They were saying, we don't want those people to have a chance. And it's funny that the argument has changed now among progressives. Progressives are now saying that this is about human dignity, but the economic analysis hasn't really changed. that what it does is it locks undesirable, quote, undesirable people out of employment.
You know, and what really bothers me is anybody who's never either run a business or been a manager of a business or looked at the P&L of a business, they don't even understand this, because when you have a $15 minimum wage and then you add payroll tax and effectively what has become government required benefits, most jobs in America have benefits now of some level. You know, when I look at my P&L for my employees, if they're making $15 an hour, they're effectively costing me $30 an hour on the P&L. And then of course, the reasons for business to exist is a profit margin. So if I can't squeeze out, 20%, 30%, 100% return on investment on that employee, I'll just do it myself. So if you factor in payroll tax, overhead, plus a margin of profit, a $15 an hour employee is really costing the business owner, call it $30, $35, $40, $45 an hour. And then I like to think of the restaurant example, here in LA. The people that are usually the lowest paid individual at the restaurant level is the hostess, because maybe they're not old enough yet to serve alcohol, so they can't be a waitress. So the hostess makes $10 an hour currently, or $12 an hour, whatever the California minimum wage is. That means the waitress makes $12 an hour plus tip, which means the shift manager makes $16, and the manager makes $22, and the short order cook who can, at Cheesecake Factory, recall 200 recipes from memory, because Cheesecake Factory has an absurd menu, they're making $25 an hour. Well, the problem is, if you take minimum wage for the hostess to 15, now the waitress expects to make 15 plus tips, and the manager expects to make, instead of 22, 24. And the, short order cook expects to make 28 instead of 25. And it's just this insane wage inflation across the board, which at the end of the day, look, if I go to Cheesecake Factory and my Oreo cheesecake is $13 instead of $9, that's not going to stop me from eating the Oreo cheesecake. But for the person making minimum wage, that means they can no longer eat out or provide for themselves with the lower cost goods, because lower cost goods won't exist. I don't know why there's this fallacy of like, well, we'll just make Walmart pay $25 an hour to everybody and then society will be a better place. Walmart's not going to decide, shucks, we got to pay our employees more, so we're just going to cut out more out of our profit. No, cost of goods just get more expensive. And again, I don't give a shit if milk is $7 a gallon or $17 a gallon instead of $5, because I can afford that. The person making minimum wage cares that milk is $7 a gallon instead of $5. And I don't understand why. I feel stupid when I can't help other people see this side of the argument. It makes me feel dumb that I can't articulate it well enough to make people understand that minimum wage going up is a bad idea.